Hello, ladies and gentlemen. In an attempt to regularly post on this channel, I believed it would be only fair if I began by keeping a promise I had made to someone some time ago. In this particular instance, that promise was that I intended to eventually make ebook versions of various stories I have written. Now, many of the stories I wrote when I were younger, many of them have been destroyed by a young soul who hated his own work. However, some very unfortunate stories managed to survive the Great Purgings and found their way onto the internet. So, for the first inaugural going of reading my own work to you all, I introduce you to the very first Fanfiction Friday, to which every Friday Blackchibisan can be bothered, he will do a dramatic reading of one of his own fanfictions and embarrass himself for the internet to see. How would you all love to hear a very simple fanfiction? That introduction out of the way, allow me to give context to this first beautiful piece. You see, this was the first ever bit of fanfiction I ever took a minor amount of pride in. One of the very few I ever actually thought was decent by my standards. It was published in March of 2008, which was about my sophomore year, and as you can tell, 11 years ago. Well, coming up on 11 years. Still, regardless, there is no better place to start than the first piece of work I ever felt proud of. And you are about to see why. That was a terrible, terrible mistake. This one is called The Ultimate Supervillain, Power Rangers. After I finish pulling up the preview, there we go. Supervillains were getting tired of dumb, useless henchmen always getting in the way of progress. So they decided to work together to create the world's most powerful henchmen. The experiment was a smashing success, but, as per usual, their plan backfired, and instead of a henchman, they got the ultimate supervillain. The supervillain called himself Necron, and swore that he would single-handedly beat every hero that stood in his way. The only downside in his creator's eyes was he threw the etiquette that they had showed their adversaries out the window, as you are about to see. As Necron stepped onto the scene, he thought that everything in this dinky little town was too peaceful and needed to get shook up. He shot a few people with a weak laser set to stun, and thought that that would cause the panic he wanted. As he did so, he apparently stirred up a hornet's nest because 6 people stepped onto the scene. He was surprised to notice they were teenagers. And no, there was no punctuation in that sentence. He started to laugh, but as soon as they said ready, he knew it must be those stupid power people. He thought he'd humor them and let them use their morphers, but then he decided against it. With the speed only some evil geniuses could give a being, he ran over and liberated their morphers from their custody. The power people looked surprised and looked for their morphers. Some of the dumber ones looked in the sky for them. Necron chuckled manically to himself at first, and then out loud as the teenagers realized he had taken their powers. One of the teens even felt the need to point that out. With dialogue that sounded like it was from a bad movie, the teens demanded the return of their powers, or they would inflict bodily harm on him. With a smile and a wave, he sent the morphers away to where no one could get them, and said, "Is that it? Was that what my creators had problems with? That was like taking candy from a baby." "We're not giving up yet," the teen in red shouted. Once again, the dialogue was cheesy at best. When the teen threw his hand into the air, 6 giant robots appeared out of thin air. All of the teens jumped into the giant machines and tried using them to squish Necron. Necron had been equipped for such fights. He had a pulse generator and a size machine, and there was no punctuation there. I paused because I had a hard time registering that there was no punctuation there. In this situation, he found it easier to just use the generator and cause the machines to pop. At that thought, he did just that. The end of the power people ended in a rather large explosion. Suddenly out of nowhere, he got blindsided by what he could only assume was a cosplayer trying to be a lion. When he got a closer look at the cosplayer, it was just another power people in a red suit. 5 more ran up beside him and pulled out what Necron assumed were cell phones. I said was cell phones in this. I don't know why I said that. It was were cell phones. I'm correcting my own work. I almost need to go back here and edit myself. But I prefer to leave it as originally written. He didn't realize that they were morphers until they pushed a few buttons, and they were going through a fancy transformation. While they wasted so much time being flashy, Necron had enough time to fully charge his disintegration gun and toast them. And those 2 hats are actually good grammar. I've looked at it. They're just very awkward to say. There is a better way to do that. Once again, thanks to their stupidity, they were destroyed. Then he got attacked by a ninja, 5 to be exact. Necron just waved hello to them and introduced himself. While they were caught off guard by this, he closed in. He was cut off by a green samurai with a plastic sword. Necron was starting to realize that this battle was pointless. Not because he was outmatched, but because he didn't think wave after wave of weaklings was worth his time. He vanished from that locale. Again, a pause because there was no punctuation, but I missed it. Set A. Very complicated. Dimension-destroying bomb set for 5 seconds, and left in search of more challenging prey. This was written in 2008. I am not proud of it now, but as the first work I felt comfortable publishing, I can openly say this is better than my other works at the time. But there you go. Fanfiction Friday. I don't know if I'm going to do it every Friday. I don't think I have enough chapters and fictions to do that with, but for whimsy and fun, why not? Just every now and again throw one out. And if you wish to have a non-editorialized version, read exactly as typed, then simply leave a like on the video, and let's say if it breaks 5 likes, I will do simply the story exactly with the punctuation it has with no editorializing. 5 is a very low bar. I'm thinking it'll be fine. As for the rest of that, I look forward to seeing you all in my next video, whenever it happens to arrive. And I look forward to seeing you, well, here, reading your comments on the next Fanfiction Friday. Farewell, my friends. Farewell. And remember, don't be ashamed of your writing. Just learn from it.